So let's talk about high oxalate foods. And a high oxalate food is characterized by anything over 26 milligrams per serving. A very high oxalate food would be over 100 milligrams per serving. High is 26 to 99. 10 to 25 is moderate oxalates. And then somewhere between like 5 and 9 is low oxalate. And there are some things that have virtually no oxalates. For example, animal foods, grass-fed beef, pasture-raised eggs, organic yogurt. Ideally getting these things organic, that's why I'm saying that. But in general, meat, dairy, eggs, zero, very, very little microscopic levels of oxalates, less than 5 milligrams of oxalates that we're going to find in those. And that's because cows, for example, they have a lot of Oxalobacter forminges that metabolizes the oxalates. They're eating plants. They're eating grass, typically, ideally, which is higher in oxalate. And they're consuming that, but they've got a lot of this bacteria, which breaks it down and metabolizes it and creates postbiotic nutrients that make the cow more healthy. And so that's the way it's supposed to be. Humans have Oxalobacter forminges, but if we have a history of antibiotic usage, if we've had a really bad diet, a lot of stress, heavy alcohol use, things like that, we can deplete our Oxalobacter forminges and not be able to break that down as well. And also just genetically, some people don't metabolize oxalates as well as other people. So that's something we got to keep in mind. So the high oxalate foods, beets, spinach, chocolate, I know, what a bummer, right? Chocolate, sweet potatoes, rhubarb, Swiss chard, legumes, kale, soy, nuts, and seeds. So these types of foods, for example, if somebody's on a plant-based diet, I mean, these are all nutrient-dense foods, a lot of nutrients in them. But if they're not metabolizing the oxalates, oxalates themselves will actually bind to magnesium, bind to calcium, and we won't be able to absorb a lot of those nutrients as effectively. And then these oxalates are causing more health issues, right? They actually can drive up pain in the body. They can cause mental confusion and brain fog. And also on top of that, of course, we talked about like kidney stones and issues like that. So these would be the high oxalate foods. And so when I'm working with people, I often tell them, especially if they're dealing with any of these symptoms, let's only do like maybe 1 to 2 servings of these a week, right? So let's reduce our consumption of these particular foods. Let's increase the amount of, I'm a huge advocate in general. I find that most people do well with lots of healthy grass-fed animal foods, right? Things like that I think can be really helpful. And then let's switch over to some of these lower oxalate foods. Like instead of spinach salads, let's do arugula salads. Broccoli is low oxalate, cauliflower, cabbage, those cruciferous family tends to be a little bit lower. Kale is kind of moderate to high. Onions and peas are low. Mushrooms, bananas, strawberries. Most of our fruit, I'm not overly concerned, even though raspberries, for example, are higher oxalate fruit, not overly concerned with getting it as much from fruit because fruit just has, in general, less plant defense chemicals that the body has to deal with. It's got a lot of structured water that can be really beneficial for cell communication. So there's a lot of benefits there. Not overly concerned about high oxalate fruit. So in general, fruit, many of you guys are going to be happy. Coffee is low oxalate, so that's a good one. A lot of different herbs, cilantro. If you like grains, white rice, oats actually are lower. And lemon. Lemon and lime are key because lemon and lime actually are high in citric acid. Particularly, they have potassium citrate, magnesium citrate. Citrate will actually bind with oxalates and pull oxalates out of the body. So actually taking lemon, like with your salad or wherever you're consuming, squeezing lemon juice on there will provide the citric acid, the citrate, and citrate naturally binds to oxalates and will help remove oxalates. Also, foods that are low oxalate but high in calcium, calcium itself will actually bind to oxalates as well. So that's going to be things like, and also high in calcium and magnesium at the same time. Things like organic unsweetened yogurt. I love Greek yogurt. If you don't have a dairy intolerance, unsweetened Greek yogurt, it's a great protein source. It's also high in calcium and magnesium. And also probiotics in there, right? And enzymes and things like that to help support the gut microbiome. So that's a really good one. There's also things like broccoli is a good one. Bok choy, higher in calcium, lower in oxalates. So those are good. Organic raw milk, right? If you can get access to raw milk, that's another good source. Organic butter, grass-fed butter, ideally. Another good source of low oxalate and high calcium. Eggs, egg yolk, And also fish, particularly fish with bones or bone broth in general, it's going to be high in calcium, low oxalate. So those would all be really good things to be adding in and utilizing in your diet.